Martin Luther King once said during his civil disobedience movement that mass civil disobedience can use rage as constructive and a creative force. Today, as April 18th approaches, a lot many anti-Trump Americans plan to celebrate it as a no-tax day. They are small in number and yet believe that they can overthrow the Trump, and as a medium they choose not to pay any federal tax. These satyagrahis, as Gandhi would have called them, will pay their city and state tax but will refuse to pay federal tax as a mark of protest against Donald Trump government. The number of these protesters is small at this time, and their not paying tax may not affect the government, but the movement is slowly gaining momentum. And just like it did during the Vietnam years and before that, a peaceful protest they are calling it, and yet it intends to throw Trump government. Now let's look at what are the reasons for them not paying any tax. While they see federal tax being used for unjust causes like the Mexico War and the collection of more weapons, they also see Trump as an enemy who will redistribute the wealth of the middle class amongst rich. The call of the working man in the election campaign is being called as a fraud. It only seems fit not to pay federal tax to the government to put their point across. Civil disobedience movement is not new to America. The most famous being Boston Tea Party, where resistance to English tea was marked by overthrowing crates of tea into the sea belonging to the East India Company. Then Susan B. Anthony in 1872 was arrested for voting and fined. That was a very widely publicized trial. And although she refused to pay no fine, there was no action taken. Then Henry Thoreau, a hero of today's anti-Trump campaign, had also refused to pay federal taxes to protest against slavery and the Mexican War. And in fact, he can be called the father of the American civil disobedience movement. And others like William Parker have also played a part in the American civil disobedience movement. Strangely, the juries from time and again have sided with the protesters. They haven't convicted them. In fact, they have set them free. During the pre-Vietnam War years, civil disobedience movement activists were seen during the Black American Right War as well. The heroes were Martin Luther King, James Bevel, Rosa Parks, and other activists. In fact, Rosa Parks is the one who refused to vacate a bus seat, and it resulted in the Montgomery bus incident. And acts like these have been registered time and again. And this has resulted in passing of various acts in America, basically the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Opening House Act of 1968, which were all result of the efforts put by the Black Americans fighting for the rights of other Black Americans. The biggest civil disobedience movement in America was perhaps during the Vietnam War. Approximately 34,000 burned their draft letters, and students striked, and there was disobedience seen in the armed forces as well. Thousands of them flee to Canada and Europe. And in fact, in 1972, army disobedience was widespread, and more than 50 out of 142 GIs in one company refused to go out on patrol. What can be really said is that the movement has that whenever there has been injustice, the American average Joe has risen up and lifted the baton and fought for his rights. Now, what is the plan of action as intended by the protesters? The protesters intend not to pay any federal tax. and would write to the government accusing Trump of misuse of public money. They, instead of paying the Inland Revenue Services, would just use the money for just causes. And they have found an example in their heroes in the past. In fact, they have actually looked at the law, how it works. And although David Thoreau had refused to pay tax and was jailed in 1846, it is a very big question whether people can be jailed for not paying their taxes. So what can the government do in case you do not pay your federal tax? And the only thing which came up is like the government can actually fine you and charge interest on the unpaid taxes by the IRS. In fact, 45% of the Americans pay no federal tax. And you cannot go to jail, that is for sure. And 15th of April is defined as the last day for paying federal tax. In fact, this year the date has gone to 18th of April. So what happens when you don't pay tax? Definitely you owe more to the government. You'll spend extra time and money cleaning up your mess, basically explaining to the IRS why you haven't paid your tax, filing additional tax forms. Your credit worthiness may take a hit because the credit card companies would come to know that you haven't paid your taxes. In fact, when your taxes go up to $10,000, the government can actually come and impound your house to recover the money. So that would be a real mess. And in fact, your monetary life will become very uncomfortable with all the questions and letters from the IRS and extra compounding, fine, and interest in every letter. You won't go to the jail until the government determines that you are purposely trying to evade tax. Now, this is very important to understand. If you are part of this movement, you will purposely not pay the tax, and the government can use this clause given in the law that in case you are purposely trying to evade tax, they can actually jail you. So basically being a part of the federal tax, non-payment of federal tax may result in going to jail in case you are very, very well off. So what is happening right now? Now there is a committee called National War Tax Resistance Coordinating Committee which was formed in 1982. It was a campaign group that encouraged federal tax boycotts in the name of peace and advised citizens on how to go about it. So basically they told the citizens not to pay their federal taxes or how to boycott them in the name of peace. And in the past, people have refused to pay federal taxes for various reasons and haven't been jailed. That is a fact. In the recent times, more and more people have started to visit the committee website, which indicates that more and more people are becoming anti-Trump. And the visits to committee's rudimentary website have doubled in the recent weeks to about 1,500 a day. So the website is again active. And the committee estimates that about 8,000 people a year refuse to pay US federal income tax as an act of civil disobedience. And that number is expected to rise. So already around 8,000 people are not paying their federal taxes every year. In February this year, which is now, and before the tax time on March of 15th, 500 or more of these protesters have listed their names, and ads will be published in New York Times asking more people to join. So basically these people are actually going to say that we are not going to pay our federal taxes this year as a mark of anti-Trump movement. And anti-Trump rallies have been planned nationwide on 15th of April, which is normally the tax day, and it is being called as a no tax day, celebrated as a no tax day. And the theme will be to demand that the president release his federal tax records, which he has always refused to do. So the question arises, can you be jailed for being a part of the anti-Trump movement or not paying your federal taxes? And in the past, few people have been jailed, but according to experts that is unlikely. Suppose the movement grows into few thousand, few million, then definitely they cannot jail so many people. So as I said before, the more that join the movement, the lesser likely it becomes. Then there is, however, always a negligible chance depending upon how the government deals with it. So if the government changes the law or brings in a clause under which you can be jailed, definitely you will be going to jail. And civil disobedience movements take time and patience. Definitely, it is not a matter of a few months or a few weeks. It is a matter of few years to be fruitful. And all the great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Karl Marx, and Martin Luther Jr. have all been to jail several times. So if you are scared of jail, this movement is definitely not for you. So guys, thank you for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed this video, and all the facts have been taken up from various news resources. So I hope you're a part of the movement, and if you're scared, don't be a part of the movement. But it's always good to pay your taxes, because your taxes are some way used for the betterment of the community. So see you around, and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.